The collapse of Enron and WorldCom proved that even large and mighty companies have their Achilles heels. In this case, it was corporate misgovernance and faulty accounting. Accounting firms, once relegated to the background, have never played a greater role in the make-or-break corporate world. In 2005, the local accountancy industry made the transition to international accounting standards, which now puts us at par with the rest of the world. But has this transition been smooth for the country's firms and accountants, and what other reforms are in store? Joining us today on our CEO Forum is the Managing Partner and CEO of Punongbayan Araullo, Navarro. Good morning, sir. Thanks for coming.
Good morning, and I'm glad to be here.
Well, I can understand the logic of it. If the whole world basically adopts the same accounting standards, when it doesn't matter if you're reading a balance sheet in Manila or in London, they're speaking the same basic language.
That's right.
And so I understand that the accounting industry here found it very important to adopt international standards, not piecemeal, but rather in one shot.
That's right. We did that. We bit the bullet, so to speak, in 2005, and immediately adopted all the 26 new standards. It was tough for many companies. In fact, for the small and medium-scale companies, we had to put up a separate set of, or give some exceptions because of the difficulty in adopting.
But it was even tough for the big companies, sir.
Yeah, because, well, the big companies in the Philippines is not really that big compared to worldwide standards or
They'd
US
be
standards.
small and medium by international standards.
So again, the mark-to-market requirements or the what you would call fair value accounting was very tough because there's no really market to talk about. The stock market is limited. There's no bond market, things like that.
All right, you're focusing on the mark-to-market. Tell our viewers exactly what that is. You have an item in your balance sheet. Let's say you bought it for ₱1 billion. In the past, how would that work? You just carry it at cost?
Well, in the past, yes. You carry it at cost. You deposit ₱1 billion, and because you said that we're going to carry that for a long time. But now, if you classify that as a trading security or marketable security, then you have to market to market. And that's precisely what has happened between 2005, 2006, and 2007. Is everybody just has to market if it's a current asset.
And that's not a problem. Let's say, for example, you bought a property for ₱1 billion, and the price of that property were appreciating, you'd have no problem mark-to-marketing. But in the case of the property price going down in the market, that creates problems for the company.
Yes, because now you have to determine how much would be the losses in that property, and you have to, what we call, impair the property, put impairment losses on those properties.
In other words, you have to value it at the lower value. You have very little choice.
No choice, practically. And what's nice in this is everybody's now converging. Even the U.S. has decided that it will accept. The U.S. SEC says it will accept international financial reporting standards, financial statements without any change. You don't have to reconcile it to the U.S.
How much of this was brought about by the collapse of Enron and other companies early in the century?
Well, we were already going towards harmonization as early as the mid-90s. No? But I guess Enron hastened that. Immediately, there has been a realization that we have to do this. You know, it has to be something that everybody could understand, and that everybody, wherever you are, would be able to confidently look at any financial statement and say, yes, that is the true value of this company.
How do you make the case to a company in the Philippines? Let's say you're not a listed company. You're not looking for funds to buy your share. How do you make the case for them that they have to adopt these standards? Let's say, for example, and they know it's going to result in a temporary impairment in some of the net asset value. How do you convince them to go ahead and do it anyway?
Well, remember, almost everybody, the capital market is very active last year. And a lot of these small and medium scale is looking forward to eventually becoming a publicly listed company. And so all of them are trying to adapt to the financial reporting standards. Having said that, however, even the international community realized that there are small and medium scale issues. They have come up now with a draft of a complete new set of international financial reporting standards for SMEs. So the only issues now is how do you define an SME? Yeah. An SME in the Philippines is not an SME in the US or in France. So each of the countries will now probably have to define what is an SME and adopt this new set of standards for SMEs.
How different are the standards for SMEs as compared to the standards for larger companies?
Well, the jury is still out. It's still in draft form. All the countries have been asked to comment on what should be there. It still would be faithful, I think, to fair value accounting, except that I guess the smaller firms will be given some relief on the references that we will need to make.
Okay, so a little bit more leeway.
Yeah, I think so.
And that would be acceptable to the international financial
But as long as everybody complies with the financial standards for SMEs, that would certainly be very much welcome.
You make a good point when I asked you about why would I, as a small company, a relatively small company, want to adopt this if it's going to lead to problems. Because you're saying at some point, these companies will have to access the financial markets
Yes.
either to borrow money or to raise equity or anything else.
Yeah.
And if they need to take money from outside, then these are the reportorial requirements that any outside
Certainly, yeah.
investor will want.
And the BSP, the banks have been very careful now about that. In fact, they want the CPAs who are certifying to the financial state to be accredited by these financial institutions. So it's very important that you comply with the International Financial Reporting Standards. Gone were the days that you could have two financial statements stamped by the BAR and another one that you show to the bank so that you could get a bigger loan. That's no longer acceptable.
How compliant are we in fact, sir? I mean, I know that many efforts are being made to actually get many companies to adopt it. I know that many have adopted it, but how would you assess the general compliance of the Philippine corporate sector?
Very recently, the Institute of Corporate Directors, the PSC, and the SEC came up with the corporate governance scorecard. And part of that is financial statements, no, disclosures, and adoption of standards. And I'm very happy to say that I think in disclosures, it's one of the highest scores in that corporate scorecard. In disclosures, it's in the high 80s. So you could see that at least the listed companies, no, are trying very hard to adopt because of the regulations. So what you need to do is to convince everybody else to fully comply because it makes business sense. It's good business.
Well, I think that point has been made, but I'm wondering, are there still companies that are not complying with it? And is there a need perhaps to provide greater incentives for compliance or maybe greater sanctions for non-compliance?
The sanctions are there. Accessing the capital markets. You cannot access if you're non-compliant. And of course, the tax guys are becoming very difficult. No? We need to raise funds as a matter of course. All this. That's why this amnesty is very important. I think everybody should try to avail of it so that you do away with past sins and start fresh.
Let's relate it to what's happening in the world markets today. You have the mortgage crunch in the U.S. And we've seen in the headlines banks like Societe Generale, Citibank, Merrill Lynch, all the big boys are taking hits. You were telling me before we went on the air that there's been some clamor to maybe loosen up on the standards to allow financial institutions.
Yeah, towards the end of the day, when this exploded sometime October, I think there's a lot of pressure from the business community to declare what's happening in the subprime market as distressed. It's a distressed sale, it's a forced sale.
Yeah.
So therefore, maybe the remaining mortgages in the portfolio should not be marked to market. Because can you imagine if it was bought for $100, it's now worth $10. It's
Yeah.
a $90 write down. And so what's nice is the international financial, at least the accounting community, the big six firms in the world had come together and issued a white paper and said, no, this is an ordinary event. We should expect this to happen regularly, and that therefore everybody should just market to market.
But what's the consequence to those guys if they mark to market at this time? I mean, what, the value of their stock will drop?
Well, that is what has happened. The value of the stocks will drop, and of course there's a credit crunch. People now are afraid to lend because of what has happened. But that also gives you lessons on how to be prudent, on how not to just give loans left and right.
What's this all about? At the end of the day, Mr. Navarro, we've got a few minutes left, but if you pull back and take the larger context of this, why is this all so important?
In the end, it's really about governance. I think what has happened in the past is there has been, I hate to say it, misgovernance. Okay, all of these things should have been provided, should have been anticipated. That is why there's convergence now in the U.S. towards a more principles-based accounting rather than on rules-based accounting. So it gives the CPA judgment. What is the right thing to do? Conceptually, what is the right thing? No, and part of that is really complying with good corporate governance principles.
And as a small investor, how would that benefit me?
It has been proven already. I think Singapore has had some statistics, and that shows that people who comply with good governance policies and principles get a premium in their shares, and the premium was someplace between 35 to 45%.
So
and we believe that.
The market will reward you if they feel that your corporate governance standards are high and are at par with the rest of the world.
Yeah, look at the stock market last year. The mere fact, I think, that the foreign investors could rely on the Philippine financial statements because it is compliant with international financial reporting standards has contributed largely to the boom in the stock market last year.
So you can argue that about maybe 20–30% of that upside that we saw last year was in part due to the adoption of these accounting standards.
Well, not only accounting standards, but good governance principles as a whole.
All right, Mr. Greg Navarro, Managing Partner and CEO of Punongbayan Araullo. Thank you, sir, for joining us this morning. Pleasure to have you, sir.
Thank you.
Hope to see you again.
Okay.
Up next, pulutan from everyone, well, for everyone. Some of the Oakwood mutineers are keeping busy in the kitchen. Mariton and Ginger will have more of that when Mornings at ANC returns.